Wonderful. I'm extremely excited to resume our Human-Centered AI Masters webinar series, and what better way to resume our webinar series is to get an expert in the field, not just of artificial intelligence. He himself has a doctorate in AI. But also Dr. George Sharkov is a CEO of ESI CEE. Very briefly, ESI CEE is a research organization that focuses on cybersecurity, cyber vigilance, and a lot of technological research that goes through this organization. They are consortium partners in our Human-Centered AI Masters. Without much ado, I want to introduce to you Dr. George Sharkov. And if I may just use, if you allow me to just call you George, if that is okay, please, can you tell us about yourself, George, because the world is getting to know you. Who is George?
Thank you, but that will take maybe all the time of the webinar telling about. I have multiple hats actually, and I'm director of the European Software Institute Center Eastern Europe, originally dedicated to software quality organizational process. We are partnering with the Carnegie Mellon University and the Software Engineering Institute on CMMI maturity models. Then we moved to cybersecurity and actually cyber resilience, introducing that. And later also going in the field of AI from various aspects, security, cybersecurity for AI, AI for cybersecurity, malicious use of AI, and with different simulations as well, embedding that in the cybersecurity exercises at the national, regional level, and European level as well. So that's briefly about ESI, but on the other hand, I'm also a member of, I was a member of, I have a high-level expert group on AI that was established by the Commission, and I will share some experience and the outlines actually of human-centered AI that was, or trustworthy AI, that which was defined within that group under the ethics guidelines and so on. So this is to implement the European AI strategy, and that's why even we chose this title of the topic, what is the European way, what is different from the global trends, technological and so on, and that's exactly the human point, the human-centered point. And also I'm a member of the technical committee cyber at HCAIM, which is standardization, one of the European standardization bodies, and the newly established lightweight technical committee, which is named like industry specification group on securing AI, focusing on aspects of that, preparing some of the standards. And this will be maybe the essential part of my talk this afternoon, morning or evening for anybody. It's exactly what we can regulate, what we can test from the technical and organizational viewpoint, but mainly focus on the technical part.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Very cool. So a lot of hats you wear, George, and you're busy. I also know that you've been advisor to the Bulgarian Defense Ministry, and currently I can fully imagine, without going too deep into the context of where we are in today in Europe, that you must be very busy with your day-to-day activity that requires so urgent attention. So very quickly,
I mean, there is a cyber/hybrid war which is going around. There is not only the bombs and the the madness which is going on in Ukraine right now. But it was before, during, and it will continue after, and we are all witness that the cyber hybrid war which is going on, which is unfortunately inevitably exploiting already the power of AI, in many cases for malicious use.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, and we'll definitely get into that, because that is what we are, for the audience, that is what we want to teach our younger generation. Artificial intelligence, I've been learning about AI for the past 3 decades. There have been peaks, ups and downs, in which I remember myself, even after my education back in early 90, I was working on an oil and gas field because there were no jobs there. There were no data. There was no data, so there was not much to just say besides knowing if you're a mathematician or a physicist or an astronomer. And that's what my sort of field of expertise was at the last 2. It didn't matter. Today, fortunately, we are in a data economy where large enterprises like Google and Facebook have been making wonderful strides on their research part when their research labs are developing software. Obviously, there's also misuse of that software. Algorithms have been challenged for their ambiguity. Models have been challenged for their sort of opacity. That's the goal for all of us, ourselves, including myself, Dr. Sharkov, to teach you through our organizations as consortium members really hardcore, hands-on, bias-free, but technologically superior, cyber-resilient AI. So, a lot of jargon I use, I know it shouldn't overwhelm you, dear audience. Without much ado, I want to sort of hand over the floor back to George, who is going to walk you through this wonderful presentation. I'm very keen and excited to actually go through it myself. So let me share your screen, George, and very happy to sort of let you take it away. And we'll be sitting and listening, and hopefully we'll have audience asking questions.
Thank you, Terry. And feel free to interrupt me or advise. I don't know how you, there is a chat that I normally see, right? Like all the, okay, I see. Mike, Hi, everybody. This slide repeats a little bit the hats, the multiple hats I have. Actually, the most important one is the white hat. That's what we call in cyber.
Exactly.
Sometimes, unfortunately, we have to put, especially when we do cyber exercises, and we have to put the black hat, or we have to put the red hat, the red team, and so on. So this corresponds actually the roles of AI as well in this field, the cyber field. However, I want first to share a few words about the context that I mentioned already, the European approach. And this all started, let me see how this goes. Okay. This was more than 4 years ago, the first EU strategy on AI, the implementation of AI strategy. So the main point of that the first EU strategy, actually, on AI was focusing on humans, or the human-centered AI, human oversight, and so on. And as implementation of that strategy was the high-level expert group was established around 50 experts from different fields, only few technical people inside, or researchers, but a lot of legal advisors or people, philosophers, sociologists, and so on. So it was a mixed composition. The main purpose was to establish this, to develop these guidelines and to define what trustworthy AI means, and what the recommendations or the requirements are, and what is the structure of this definition of trustworthiness of AI. So what we published as a result of that group in 2020 was exactly the ethics guidelines, and I will outline the 7 aspects of the trustworthiness of AI, and linking in details what actually are what the technical requirements are, what the meaning, or what's the part of the technical robustness of AI within all the picture of ethics, or this trustworthiness. So we have this white paper. Then after that, we publish even the so-called ALTAI. This is the assessment list on AI, on Trustworthy AI for the small companies or organizations. Key questions that we have asked, as we always define this: human oversight, is it always possible? What is the risk-based approach which was taken after that and defined in the AI Act, which is still under discussion actually since last year, to be adopted. So this is the revised strategy, the white paper, and so on, and the follow-up work. Also, among the key priorities of European approach is also how to engage or how to afford or enable SMEs, small companies, small businesses, do innovations and not be limited or kind of constrained by over-regulating the AI and so on. So, but all these are key questions, and that's why the ethics guidelines it's a kind of a framework of recommendations and a lot of at least three basic streams that came out of this ethics guidelines are what is the legal basis, what are the ethical norms, and what is the technical side. And the technical side usually goes to industry, and it's transposed into different standards or recommendations, how you test all these risks. And I will focus actually for the rest of that presentation on these parts, because I think this is it's quite essential for the master students, but not only, all the researchers in our field in AI, to look from these different points. So what is the ethics, what is the legal regulation, how restrictive this is, and what are the recommendations and the standards that come out. So we have to comply with that. And the main purpose is this should not be become, and the idea of this, the technical committees, I mean, and ENISA, also the European Cybersecurity Agency, working with the ad hoc group on securing AI as well. How we can put this directly as recommendations in practice. What we have in cybersecurity and cyber resilience as a definition to systems, we have there the wisdom of finally security by design or resilience by design. But this we did 30 years after we have IT penetrated everywhere, and building this digital dependency. Then we started asking the questions about the security, safety, and so on. Now, the idea with AI is that we do it while developing and while designing this, and even part of the research to facilitate that. And this is exactly in the area of transparency, explainability, auditability, and all these parts that we typically ask these questions after we have deployed that in practice. So we want to avoid that. And okay, so the three pillars, of course, of these ethics guidelines. This is lawful, ethically adherent, and technically robust AI. But the important part are these 7 areas in which I kind of underlined or colored in green. It's the green line for development. Mainly the aspects that concern the technical part, the design and the implementation of AI. So from the human agency and oversight, where you can imagine that you have more like legal or ethical part, but we have this human oversight. So how we can achieve technically that. Technical robustness and safety, all these parts, the keywords, they are not buzzwords. Like we have resilience to attack and security, fallback and general safety, accuracy, reliability, reproducibility. By the way, about that might be interesting for the audience. We had a huge discussion, maybe one-day discussion, when technical people, we had to explain all the others why AI, or typically machine learning systems, but not only, this self-modifying, self-learning systems, why they cannot reproduce their answer. And it's not very easy to convince the audience on that. I mean, it's finally, at the end of the day, we have that definition that we have to reproduce the behavior, not the output, not the data. So on the advice or whatever we have of our systems. Then we have all this large area of privacy and data governance. So you had in previous webinars these discussions as well about the privacy, data protection, regulation on that. But also we have this quality and integrity of data, where you have a lot of hidden threats that are the biased data and so on, especially for machine learning systems and non-supervised learning or deep learning systems. So then where you totally depend on the quality of data. But you have also the access to data. These are aspects related, including to the SMEs, small businesses, which is essential. Open data is not enough. I mean, not all the data that we need. And this is why the AI Act is strongly linked to the Cybersecurity Act, but also to the data regulation that is coming, that came out in European Union. And there are these specific aspects that are related to machine learning platforms. Then we have this, of course, transparency with all these aspects, traceability, explainability, non-discrimination, and so on. Accountability, actually, there are several aspects like auditability, negative impact, and so on. But okay, this is coming out from the ethical guidelines, but of course they guide the technical part. So what could be recommended as a design, what could be tested after that, how you can certify this in practice. And we validated all these points in various fields. So we had these use cases and validation in healthcare, manufacturing, public sector. So how you can apply that, could you constrain? And actually, based on these validations and the principles, the European Commission started, and after that developed first the white paper that came out, the so-called trees-based approach, early last year, 2020. And then we had last year the proposal for the legal framework and legal regulation. It is still under dispute, this legal framework, which we all expect, because there are two major points. So what is the high risk? And how do we interpret the high risk with AI? But I'm not going now in details with that. The essential part of all the bodies that I'm in, and especially technical people that have a touch and feeling of AI and what is it. And this, that's why I put the iRobot here, about the friendship and the human side of the AI. But the point is that we speak about the higher risk, or the way you apply AI systems rather than the technology itself. So the technology is not risky. The application of that technology, the use of that technology is risky. It's like the nuclear or whatever technology and so on. Energy, any technology. The risk is not in the technology itself. And this is the difficult point, because when you speak to the legal people and regulations, they like to define, to outline, to restrict the technology itself, because this you can touch and test eventually, not the application, not the use. And this is quite specific for AI, actually, and this you will see later on. So this is the more extended view or understanding of the trustworthiness in AI, to the contrary of the classical IT and software system. So we have to put the quality of knowledge, knowledge is a new notion in AI system since 80s. So, well, that was between the two winters, I think. I was doing my Ph.D. during the time of expert systems and so on. So we did applied research in biophysics, genetics, and we used quite heavily reasoning mechanisms, fuzzy logic, fuzzy reasoning, and so on. Machine learning was not that much it's in favor at that moment. But now this is in practice. Anyway, we will come back. We consider actually at a certain point that we will come to more logically strict reasoning systems as well. And this is part of the definition, or part of the knowledge which could be extracted from machine learning platforms. And about this, the quality of data, all these different aspects that are specific for AI, they are different from the classical IT systems. Then we have quality of technology, specific technology for AI, how far we can use HPCs and so on, all these algorithms, the technical base that we can use it, and the cloud-based AI as well. And then we have quality of software, hardware, part of the requirements are there. And which is different from what is the difference and what is on the top of the classical requirements to the IT and software. So hardware, software systems as a standard IT. What is so specific? But yet we have to meet the basic requirements of the classical IT as well. And this is especially in the cybersecurity field. So many people say, okay, well, now we have to define security for AI, which is totally different. No, it is on the top of the classical security or cybersecurity that we have of infrastructure systems. Then we have, of course, new business models, new compliances, new standards that are coming out, adapted legal base, and so on. And especially in various areas. So this is especially in that part. We started even during the high-level expert group, the discussion, especially the technical people, including our institute. We are collaborating in this project with the DARPA Explainable Artificial Intelligence, especially having this about the learning classification type of systems and developing the notion why, not the notion, the approach, not why this is a bear or this is a monkey or something, but why this is not a bear, why this is not that part, because this is part of the explanation as well. But I'm not going in these details.
Yeah.
As a result of these requirements and what could be regulated, and there is a call for standards or at least specifications that the AI systems should meet to fulfill this trustworthiness and the three aspects, especially the last one here, the technical robustness. There are two bodies that actually three bodies that have been set up. And this is the first, the specific group at ETSI. This is one of the European standardization organizations. Initially, it was the European Telecommunication Standards Institute or something with GSM standards and all the other 3GPP and all the stuff is developed there, 5G now. But a lot of fields, including technical committee cyber, is there. And these are purely industrial initiated technical committees, to the contrary of the Sensenelec, which is more like, I would say, bureaucratic approach. It's coming from the standardization bodies. And one major difference and advantage of ETSI, and that all the specifications, the standards, all the outcome deliverables are free of charge. So they are not sold as standards. There is no, and this is a good motivation also for us. I represent there the SMEs, the European Digital SME Alliance and Small Business Standards Organization. But this is a good motivation really to focus on applicability or affordability for SMEs of all the things that are coming out from there. So this industry specification group I mentioned at the beginning, it's a kind of lightweight standardization body. It's a spin-off of Technical Committee Cyber, and the title itself is Securing AI. Shows you the focus. I will give the three aspects of that. And then also with ENISA, the European Cybersecurity Agency, there is an ad hoc group on securing AI, and especially the organization, the requirements that are in the field of securing AI. So how you could integrate that to the European Cybersecurity Strategy, this certification frameworks, and so on. The AI Act itself, as I said, it's under discussion. This is the proposal for regulation, but it's almost finished. So there are a lot of aspects. Certainly, the dispute is, as I said, to shift the focus and to define better the risk-based approach for the application of AI rather than technology. And also to make it available and affordable for small businesses, which is typical for Europe. I mean, looking at that. So as part of this AI Act, since it is expected to have kind of specification standards and to allow testing or validating the security trustworthiness of AI systems, applications, before they're used or during their usage, when they're implemented and widely used, to monitor that. The call for such development of such standards and what they name yet another certification scheme for trustworthiness of AI. And this is the first question. I put it in the conclusions, but it's good to ring the bell now. That this AI certification framework or schemes are not developed yet. Some principles are outlined, but it looks like they're considered as a separate entity, separate certification scheme or set of standards and testing procedures and laboratories, different from the cybersecurity certification framework or schemes which are almost finalized already, at least the first set of such schemes under the Cybersecurity Act. So this is a little bit more advanced, but we want to avoid that this is not, so there is a good synchronization. We want to avoid yet another burden, another certification or whatever standardization trap. So this should be a facilitator rather than constraint or hurdle for smaller, especially small businesses. And here we consider as well that in Europe, majority of especially small companies, small businesses, they are going to use AI as a service. So they are not going to develop that. So, and this is another essential point of how you define the security testing and so on aspects. What in terms of standardization and specifications that are developed at HCAIM, so there are a couple of various committees that are using the already, they have defined already the use of AI for optimization of ICT networks and communication, for example. Reliability through appropriate testing at different committees and so on and so on. So we focus, and this is the ongoing work, which is quite intensive, by the way. And what came out, I'm not going, of course, to describe all that, but these are different requirements related to the AI Act about these key aspects of the AI, especially all of this, I would say at this moment is focused on machine learning type of systems and implementations of AI. So the data, the technical documentation, records, human oversight, and with all these aspects, exactly here is the transparency and information to users and traceability. Those are related to especially to high-risk systems. So our work at ISG Securing AI, this is related to the security, as the title say. So we have this mitigation strategy. Here, the important point is that we look at the different stages of using the model. Many people consider this either to test or validate or pre-trained models. You discussed that already a couple of times in a webinar, and not only, of course. This is from the research point, very interesting part in the development. Then we have the model under training, under development. This is still good, but we used to forget the model in operation. And since we have this self-evolving system, self-learning systems, actually the typical, considering the security part, the typical attacks towards AI-based systems, machine learning systems are exactly here, model in operation. We have in a couple of cases, of course, the biased data for the training. That's another thing. But this aspect, the ongoing or monitoring, continuous monitoring of the stability of work, I would say, or reliability or trustworthiness, that's under, how should I say, undermined.
Yeah, of course.
We focus on that. Maybe that's interesting. That's from the research viewpoint as well. It's quite interesting point. So we studied, of course, the different attack types during the phases of training, inference, and so on. And I would say, to come back to the very initial question that you had about the cyber resilience and so on, we have three different aspects of AI that we consider. So one thing, of course, the basic one is how you can secure AI from attacks. So this is cybersecurity for AI in general. However, we have, since we know the models or the mechanism how AI works, then we can give recommendations or develop recommendations how the classical or other AI systems could defend against malicious use of AI. And this is part of the job. This is maybe not AI job. This is the cybersecurity job, but it's strongly dependent on AI, what we study there. And then, of course, we have practically the third aspect is using AI to empower the cybersecurity systems. Practically at this moment, there is no high level or let's say high ranked CM or whatever cybersecurity system, monitoring system, which is without AI. So at least the machine learning mechanisms are used there to eliminate false positives. That's the minimum thing. But it's we have a lot of other applications. So this is another part that is in our focus. Of course, at the moment, the main development is related to the first part. And just to mention here that also the vision is that when we speak about AI for cyber, since we have the AI-empowered attacks or intelligent attacks and mechanisms, is the kill chain and so on, the advanced kill chain of cyber attacks, using AI, machine learning, self-adaptive systems, self-learning, and so on. We have, by the way, we have a lot of new viruses or malware that is fileless, serverless, and so on. And all this is based on a kind of adaptive algorithms and the applications intelligent ML-based. But we have this vision that the only way to defend against AI-empowered malicious actors is AI. No other system can withstand such an attack or detect it at least. This is also one very interesting application actually of AI machine learning is within the framework developed by ENISA, which is situational awareness system, OpenCSAM, which is following at the moment. It looks like crawling different information from different channels, but structuring that knowledge about, especially about the vulnerabilities, threats that come from different channels. But this is quite powerful. It's more than malware information sharing platform. It's not just information sharing. It's really structuring knowledge based on that. Now, focusing on what we are doing at different aspects at securing AI at the specification group, I will outline most of this work. I mean, half of this work has been published already. So all this is public, as I said. And this could be quite well used also as recommendations for education programs, curriculum, but also for the guiding the researchers where to go. The only one which is already in a field of standard or specification, something that could be tested, this is the security testing of AI. It is based on the rest of the work. All the other reports are actually recommendations or requirements to the AI, different aspects of AI machine learning systems. So I would say this is the draft has been published already, and it is we are using as pilots to do some testing of applications that are available already. So different requirements and testing procedures for machine learning components, mutations of that, differential testings, the adversarial, well, kind of pen testing, but adapted for AI. Adequacy criteria. It's a very big challenge how you can define these security test oracles, how you can test actually, what is the wisdom of that. So we have the outlines, the recommendations of that, adversarial robustness. So this is really the first set of testable, I would say, requirements, or that could bring a basic level of certification of technical robustness. The other points that some of them are reports, but they will become part of the standards or at least implementation part of the standards after the testing and security. This is about mitigation strategies, different mitigation strategies related to different AI threats, security capabilities, and so on. Also studying different scenarios. Supply chain report, this is for classical systems, you have a lot of supply chain threats that come from the components, not only from countries that are doubtful in their intentions, I would say, but here in AI, the majority of supply chain recommendation requirements are related to data, as you can imagine. So this is exactly the traceability and integrity of data. Attributes different information, especially having in mind this confidentiality. As part of this, we have this actually confidential. Okay, I will come back. Trusted testing environment, and then we have privacy computation, definition of privacy computation, and confidential computation. And this is especially useful for AI. I remember that you discussed, I think, maybe the previous or the other webinar, that part related to pseudonymization or anonymization of data, but yet having traceability or having accountability or being able or explainability even aspects.
Yeah.
So techniques, I mean, cryptographic techniques like homomorphic encryption and so on, in yet having the valid recommendations, this is part of the consideration there. Then we have also the requirements on the hardware on securing AI. So this is integrity, trustworthiness of platforms, the computational platforms, the hardware. The two aspects of explicability. By the way, there is a discussion, explainability or explicability should be. So the native English speakers at our group, they said, okay, they should be explicability, not explainability. Doesn't matter what, but that's the title at the end of the day. We have this. So we link this explicability with the transparency of AI processing. So issues from the this is maybe the direct impact from the regulation, ethics parts, misuse, and so on, human-centric. And the privacy aspects, as I mentioned already, we have this specific part defining what is the privacy, multiple levels of trust, different attacks and mitigations. Here we have AI specific and non-AI specific. Those are the classical IT attacks, let's call it, or cyber attacks. And so the traceability of AI models, the models themselves. Here, the interesting part is, and this is a challenge for the researchers, I think, is how you can share the models. So talking about machine learning, of course. So how you can take one piece of knowledge in a neural network and then unite with another piece and then make a new system, how you can transfer my knowledge of my trained system to another system and so on. This is not very clear. And I think from the technological viewpoint, that's a huge challenge as well. Blah, blah, blah. And computing platform security frameworks. Here we talk also about the using the HPCs and so on, how we can use it. So I think with this, I made an overview. All these aspects, there are good recommendations for developers, researchers, but I think this is inevitable that all this should go in the curriculum for the at least masters. And some of these aspects they need. It's not about the regulation; it's about the recommendation and what we need to consider when we develop and implement AI-based systems. As conclusions, I would say that all this is not just in the air. So most of these recommendations, we, in the approach of HC technical committee, is that we pilot this, validate that in several areas, especially having in mind the risk-based approach. So in the next slide, these are the areas, the high-risk areas or high-risk systems according to the AI Act, all these biometric identification categorization systems, which are related to the human natural persons as well, not identification, but tracing that. As well, management of critical infrastructure, that's especially our area because we monitor all these 14 or 18, 16 sectors or essential services providers and so on. And most of them are intelligent in a way. This means that they use AI either as a decision-making or a lot of them are autonomous already. But also they use AI as supervision of their normal function. So imagine that if this supervised, this AI-empowered supervision system, if this is wrong, we will get something what we have witnessed with the SolarWind implementation of the integrated cybersecurity. Huge damage on this water, gas, heating, and the other system. Then, of course, we have other areas. The first two...
I see education and vocational training also a high-risk system.
Exactly, it's here. It's high risk.
How is it high-risk system?
Ask the commission. I don't know. We haven't considered. That's an interesting topic. I assume that part of this is related to privacy. but not only. And this is especially in COVID pandemic situation. Profiling as well. I don't know about the assessments and so on. Yeah, that's an open area, and I think this is part of our project that could be also
Very interesting to address.
used. Exactly. But this is also for employment workers, HR part. How you
Yeah,
select.
that I can understand. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of automated tracking systems, ATS, and selection
Exactly.
systems.
Then private services, law enforcement, and so on. Law enforcement is interesting. This is related to privacy as well. So there are some exceptions of this high because there are a lot of red lines, I would say, in the AI Act for what you cannot use, or you should not use, or you must not use the machine learning. And one of these is to trace people, actually. And it's a kind of catch-22 there, because on the other hand, this is the most powerful tool against counter-terrorism and all these organizations. So, following the legal requirements, you can trace a person once it is suspected already. It's identified as a suspect. So this means that we miss one of the biggest advantages of machine learning systems or AI systems, that we can trace the behavior of people and detect suspect behavior, for example. But this means that you massively trace or monitor all people, which is not allowed and not ethical as well. So it's tricky, all these aspects. Justice, democratic processes. There's one interesting approach also for implementing AI Act that's both like technical and legal. And this is what they call sandboxing. So when we have the AI application implementation already in practice, that you can still do sandboxing test about all these parts like traceability, accountability, and so on, the technical parts, but also the legal requirements, which I don't know how to do.
Cool.
I was asking several times, but you put AI system and put it in the legal framework of a country, and then or European Union, and then you say, okay, tell me if this is compliant to the legal requirements. What does it mean? It's how you do this legal sandboxing. Although
these are great examples. Thank you, George. I think we are approaching.
I think with this,
Yes.
I end that presentation. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I'm afraid I opened more topics than answers.
There are, yes, you opened up, in fact, Pandora's box. I have two questions. I will, perhaps if you can give a brief answer to these. So this is from one of our colleagues, and I hope you can read this.
Yes. Okay. I think everybody can read that. Okay.
Yes.
Definitely. The I would say harnessing AI to counterfight pandemic. That was the first. It's more than, and it's much more human use of AI compared to the war which is going around, and or the attacks against critical infrastructure and so on, the hybrid war. Certainly a lot of different aspects. AI was used in many different aspects. So one of them was in real cases. I know that it's like, I think the pioneers were in Israel when they were based on machine learning platforms, when they have a patient, COVID suspect patient coming in, so they can strictly say, oh, how many days this patient is expected to spend in emergency, how many days in that and that, what kind of resources you have, so you can do optimization of resources that are needed, and optimization of hospital resources that are critical. And that was among the first use. So you monitor all the behavior, particularly individually for a person, so personalized. And definitely that raised, and this type of following the patient data and so on, sharing that opened a lot of questions on privacy. And at this moment, nobody was concerned about privacy, of course, because you fight against something unknown, a new pandemic. However, a lot of misuses, really misuses of this leak of personal data profiles and privacy. was affected. And this is not only about the COVID pandemic, it is about the other chronic diseases. We had this example, profiling, coming before. So health field and use of machine learning for profiling, optimizing resources, so having the treatment path and so on, individually per person, that's a very tricky point. We had this issue before with analyzing X-ray, by the way.
Yes.
Pre-trained systems and so on. This is one of the first areas, as far as I know, and some colleagues, they work in that field, where you can use really kind of homomorphic encryption really to analyze and to be able to detect and yet to detect anomalies and yet keep the privacy of data. So definitely that is an area. This is why health is among the tricky areas that we are considering as among the first pilots and about the regulations.
Another question, and perhaps
Yeah.
the last question, given the interest of time.
Yeah.
I know we speak a lot about the trustworthiness of AI, so I'll just summarize this question for you. What about the reliability in standards and certifications methods? So, for example, this is a question: adversarial training between AI systems, and how they could mitigate risks connected to the lack of predictability of AI systems' robustness. So, very high level, how do we sort of make sure that this transferability and across systems
Yeah.
and I think this is more of a very interesting question, actually. I'm not
It's
sure.
a very interesting topic. I touch a bit that, but there are several aspects. So if we consider the real in our digitized world, the systems that run complex resources, if we take the system of systems approach. So we have at the high level, doesn't matter AI or not AI, we have actually intercommunication between different systems at the very higher level. So this compound new organism, I would say, or IT software decision-making infrastructure has a totally new, the way we call it, emergent behavior. So this is
but
like
also it's more compositional, eh? It's a compositionality, actually.
It's more than composition.
Compositionality dilemma.
Exactly, but it's more than composition. It's not the sum of the functionalities of different systems. Actually, it's a new functionality, composed functionality that you do. Now, consider that a lot of these systems are either monitored by AI or they could be run by AI, or some of their decisions are based on ML. For example, at this moment. So how you determine the improper behavior? So when you generate alerts and so on, this is based on ML. But if you attack ML itself, the supervision system, then you'll have false positive, false negatives, and a lot of things. So actually, it's a big confusion. But about the reliability, since for the classical systems, what we can do, we can have fault tolerance system, for example, 3 systems running in parallel and so on. For AI, unfortunately, this doesn't work. So the only way, probably, we consider let's go back to the rule-based systems and so on. If you have the level of confidence in each of the decisions or each of the recommendations, you can calculate this level of confidence of your advice, for example. And this is the self-evolving criteria. That's the classical expert systems from the very beginning, Mycin and so on. So then they can give you some advice, for example, based on certain level of trust or confidentiality, actually, confidence in that recommendation. And this is fully aligned with the risk-based approach, by the way. So what is the level of confidence that you require from the decision to understand if this is a bird or this is a stop sign or this is something instead of that? And we saw a lot of attacks actually against this stop sign, the pattern recognition systems, the way they work, I mean, the visual stuff, the train systems. So unfortunately, lack of repeatability or this self-modified or self-learning systems makes it totally impossible to do this test or checks in a laboratory environment.
Yeah.
So we
I
have
think,
to continually
yeah,
monitor that. Yeah.
I know one of my mentors.
Yeah.
His supervisor back in the 60s. So my mentor is almost 80 years old in California. His supervisor is a Nobel Prize winner, and my mentor, he's also worked with uh, great mathematicians, and right now these guys are working on they say software is interesting, but AI should be, or AI or the cognizant system should be more wetware. And when they say wetware, they
Yeah.
mean embodied AI with autopoiesis. Back in the 90s, also it was very popular concept of using synthetic biology.
Yeah.
Today, we are giving the cognition, or at least we are receding our, or at least conceding to AI systems that are where intelligence is built in silico. But I think this is where I think the human-centered AI, where we think humanity or humans should be at the center of decision-making process, and let AI sort of solve rudimentary problems, is where I think we should continue to focus in developing AI, in my opinion, because autopoiesis, embodied AI, synthetic biology, they've been dreams for researchers for the past few hundred years, and we haven't found anything that is as beautiful as a human being, in terms of taking actions based on no a priori, no data, not any trained data set. So I think this is going to be a continuous discussion, but as we progress into this continuously software and data driven economy and society, I definitely think that AI definitely needs to become more resilient in terms of preventing itself from cyber attacks, as you spend your lifetime doing this. And as this colleague of ours, Monica, she mentions reliability is equally important as well. So wonderful. Thank you so much, George, for this great conversation. I know you have such a big responsibility currently on your head, and also running this great lab. We are so grateful that you and your team is part of this consortium. We look forward to meeting you soon. Any last words? So I mean, you become an educator. Back in the 90s, you spoke about expert systems, and those are, and indeed fuzzy logic as well. Some of my researchers and my students, they tend to also try to see we still can build something with fuzzy logic. What is it, the one advice that you would want to give to a young person who is trying to who have already started onboarding our master's program? What advice would you give them when they're joining our master's program? What should they know the best
Hmm.
in turn to
Okay.
be the best?
Yeah. I think the best advice would be that AI is not technology only. So it's a set of different technologies. And what we want to achieve is the human-like activity. It's like the reasoning is behind. So this is what we want. It's not imitation of humans, because a lot of biological models, as you say, there are Ray Kurzweil, what he's doing, and it's or this, even the very early idea of neural networks is coming from the simulation or imitation of our brain. Of course, it's not working like that.
No.
But human-like intelligence is actually based on different technologies, combination of them. But this is really, there is always logic behind, some logic. Some of this logic is fuzzy logic. So we should not rely on the strict logic. So this is repeatability and so on. So a lot of logical aspects, they should be studied and implemented in AI. You cannot make good AI without understanding the reasoning,
Yes.
the principles of reasoning, let's call it like that. So in many aspects, you need math as well, because logic is part of the mathematics, if you consider that, the formal logics, because at the end of the day, algorithms, they work based on the formal logic.
Exactly.
And you have a lot of algorithms behind, but algorithms are a specific algorithm. So what we used to say about the AI, the so-called knowledge-based systems. So you have algorithms that you can test, but you have algorithms plus data, which form the knowledge base. And this is a life system, self-learning, self-modifying system. And last but not least, the aspect of resilience. So resilient means in cybersecurity, we define it like this is protect against the unknown things. So you have to make your system resilient against the unknown. Known things you can handle with the security. So you know something, then you can protect. Especially for AI, the point will be to be self-resilient, self-monitoring, self-healing, and all that part. And these are not dreams. We studied that in software architectures long time ago, but only space systems or whatever control systems or mission critical systems, they had some principles like that. AI should be like that as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, George, for this wonderful explanation. I know there is so much to do. AI Act is underway. We will soon have that regulation also in place. I think you're right. We are entering into a world where a lot will be fought and protected and defended on the digital turf. And sure enough, there's also physical turf, which nations are fighting even today. Unfortunately, still 2022, and humanity is still back to on savage wars. But unfortunately, that has complicated with the digital turf that is also being fought. And I think we will have to learn these systems. We look forward to seeing you in the consortium, also helping students with wonderful hackathons and master's thesis projects. So I'm sure our students are going to have a great time. Thanks, everybody. Like I said, you can go on our website on Human-Centered AI Masters. It's called HumanCentered.eu. There you will find all information of consortium partners and also the master's program, which you will soon see evolve on our website. One of the university partners has already started the master's program, and 3 will start in September. It's a fantastic program, and I know the universities have already started enrolling students. I'm looking forward to meeting you students as well, and I'm sure Dr. Sharkov and his team will also be there for you, helping you guys become the best, strong, resilient, in not only in implementing systems but also defending, protecting, and explaining those systems. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, George. And
thank you.
I'm going to
Bye.
end the
See you soon.
broadcast.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll just